SusHi Tech Tokyo 2026. I hope everybody's enjoying yourselves. Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. And welcome back to the Impact stage. We only have 2 more sessions on this stage, so I hope you will stay with us and enjoy. Our next session is titled AI and Robots That Understand People Will Transform the Future of Hospitality. I'm sure it will be a very impactful stage and suitable for a stage called the Impact stage. Please help me welcome our distinguished speakers. We have Yukiya Nagai, Project Professor, the University of Tokyo. Yoshitaka Ushiku, CEO, Nexus Science Incorporated. Hiroshi Ishiguro, Professor, Department of Systems Innovation, the University of Osaka. Please take your seats, everybody. Thank you for joining us. The moderator today will be Ms. Nagai, so I will hand it over to you.
Thank you for joining SusHi Tech 2026. I will serve as today's navigator. I am Yukiya Nagai from Tokyo University. Thank you for your time today. Understanding human, what does that mean? And by understanding human, how will the scene of hospitality change? We invited 2 expertise and would like to carry out a discussion. In future, we will have more AI and robots, and that could replace human being. No, that is not the case. But the human and robot living together, how can we ask robot and AI to support human AI while where should human take responsibility? The border of robot and AI and human will be the center of today's discussion. And we have 2 experts today, and we will discuss how human and robot and AI can live together and what sort of contribution can be made in the area of hospitality. Before we start, we'd like to invite the 2 panelists and introduce the 2. We have Hiroshi Ishiguro, professor of Osaka University. He is very famous Android researcher, and seen from the viewpoint of Android and AI, he will share his insight. Thanks. From the year 2000, I've been engaged in the human and robot interaction and creating 19,000s of robot, and I created Geminoid, who exactly looks like me, and recently robot, android, CG characters as avatar is also implemented in society. Of course, AI is used a lot in that CG. Thanks for having me. Thanks. Next, the gentleman in the middle, CEO of Nexus Science, President Yoshitaka Ushiku. Mr. Ushiku was studying image processing and how AI can be utilized in society was his theme to launch his business. Thank you, Mr. Ushiku. Hi, everyone. I am Yoshitaka Ushiku. My company name, Nexus Science, may sound a bit fishy, but I myself is not that sort of person. And as introduced by Ms. Nagai, I was studying AI and image, and I sometimes was studying robot and generative AI, but I wanted to activate my researches, and I thought that maybe I can combine AI and robot to the area, and AI robot science could accelerate the study that I was doing. And Nexus Science was a spin-out company that was formed in that perspective. And from various perspectives, I would like to serve as a panelist who can intervene in a various way. Thanks. I myself is also studying robots, and in Tokyo University, robots study to understand humans' emotion and diverse type of human who's suffering with development disorder by building AI and robot. That sort of study is made, and I was very much looking forward to have this sort of conversation with the two experts here. Thanks for your time again. With this, I'd like to move on to my questions. The two of you are AI or robotics expert, and in recent AI that takes a lot of intelligence area are the areas you are very much familiar with. And the area of hospitality, there's yet a long way to proceed, especially the mindset of hospitality is what we Japanese people understand, but how those hospitality should be provided is yet to be discovered. And based on your development experience, hospitality in the context of recognition or reasoning or learning capability is something that can be utilized, and I was wondering how those could be utilized. Mr. Ishiguro, over to you. Hospitality may make you imagine that you can feel the connection between the others or someone is understanding you. Let's say, suppose you meet a person for the first time, then what sort of hospitality should you serve? That's based on a rule, and unless you understand the rule on how to serve people for the first time, you won't be able to provide hospitality. Let's say a visitor came to Japan, and if you are to welcome that person, you have to understand Japan's culture and also understand what sort of person he or she is. You have to immediately understand his persona, and based on his characters, you have to change the way you react with that person, and that's all based on the rules. You have to see the person in front of you and use your knowledge accumulated in your past, and within a very short reaction time. How much you know about how to serve a person with hospitality is essential, and in that sense, AI is amazing to serve as a strong hospitality function. Meanwhile, if we are to spend 1 or 2 years, meaning long year times, and still you want to stay with that person, that means that deeper hospitality will be expected, and in that context, AI is not mature enough. AI is running short of a sense of empathy, and emotions like human feel is not understood by AI for the time being, but that sort of deep connection is yet to be formed. It's not yet here today, but we have to have that. Otherwise, we won't be able to exert real hospitality, and it would take a longer time to do that. Having said that, maybe 5 or 10 years ahead, AI, robot powered by AI, can arrive. That's what I feel. Thank you. I have a question. Based on the rule you said, and we will be able to learn based on the rules, but if we were to let them understand a sense of empathy, do you think that we will be able to provide that sorts of rules? To answer your question, like we Japanese tend to make eye contact, and there's a way to show that you feel the other's person, so that sort of experience can be accumulated, and that will show a sense of empathy. But if we were to show a true empathy, it's not going to be sufficient with a simple rule. So where's the border? If we spent a full day with a single person, will we be able to understand that person, or do we need to spend 2 or 3 more days? When we encounter others, we don't stay with that person for a long term. Of course, for your family, that's different, but let's say, in a society, just purchasing things at a store, your interaction will be very short. And in this occasion, we're going to spend an hour to have this sort of panel discussion. But this 1 hour of hospitality is something probably that cannot be expressed based on a rule. Oh, sorry, it can be expressed through is a rule. So, well, you emphasize this rule, but Mr. Ushiku, you were an expert of image processing, and that was your theme of your study, and finding out the patterns or that rule is probably something that's studied under that. And is there any principles that adopt to that principle hospitality? Talking about the rules, I'd like to answer the questions that was asked by you, and then I'd like to move on to the definition of hospitality. As I said a short while ago, image processing study and AI study was done by myself. I may look young, but in reality, when I started my research, it was before the deep learning boom arrived. And image recognition rules were studied a lot by researchers, showing a futuristic design and what sort of information should be generated.
And based on that, how can we classify the image? That was the research I used to do. And at the same time, more than 10 years in this neural network, now it is almost like the fundamental model automatically learns the rules, and so the image has been done well. What about the in connecting to language? And this can also be achieved by neural network. And what about translate that into actions? That is the recently we have seen the emergence of physical AI doing the planning, and the robot action planning can be done by that as well. So it is all those planning things and rules has been embedded into the AI. That is the best senses, multimodal senses, long horizon, long time, including the task over the long horizon, will be able to be done, achieved by the AI, including some abstract things. And what is hospitality? I'm working as a venture company, and also AI. I was just supporting also the consultation, AI consultation ventures as well. So when doing the work, the Japanese word of the hospitality, omotenashi, does this person really understand me to do the work? That is the very important aspect of the AI consultant. But as a robot, and also as for AI, the same thing will be required sought after. But then, how it could be achieved? How can we sense how each person is working? If can we make the AI or robot to understand myself and then oneself, and then by providing information to the robot and AI, and if they can receive the information automatic way, they should be able to behave as well. But still, there are many things that have not been connected in your workplace. For example, this in the connecting to the anthropic code. If you try to upload, then yes, they can read it. But so there are some information which have not been digitalized yet. So from the AI side, from a robot, and then they cannot say that this type of information need to be connected, and so therefore the active actions from the AI or robots is still missing. Thank you very much. To understanding point is important. And the next point is, how do we understand a human being? And those omotenashi or Japanese welcome, hospitality, in those mind to be placed in the AI robot, in this fundamental thing to be understood. What do you think of the understanding of a human being, Ushiku-san? Well, originally, that is I'm a machine learning researcher, data-driven. In those cases, these type of data should be read, and then these type of the response will be the understanding. That is just the on the surface level of the response and to be accumulated could be closer to the understanding. The other opposite way of thinking in the understanding is the bottom-up thinking way to make the understanding model to be created, and then that could be another approach. But then, in my case, that is something that you have already acquired from based on your experience. So in this point, Dr. Ishiguro, this is you as the you have the very extreme ideas on the robotics research in Japan. You want to understand the human being. You need create an android which is very similar, extremely similar approximate of the human being, and then to understand the difference between the human being and android. And what for you, Dr. Ishiguro, what can it be done to say that to understand the human being? And what is the new innovation to understand human being? In your point, let me talk about the hospitality. And in terms of hospitality, that is the rule that you need to understand the rule of the hospitality in providing hospitality. But on the other hand, so such a rule without, but then you could feel empathy regardless of those existing rules. Like you would have the mind and to be taken into your own mind in that level, and that human being is just repeating that with the empathy with the other person, and to extract the rules and to place into the mannerism and the behaviors and actions, and that is the AI is much better than the human being in doing that. So therefore, we need to recognize a pattern, we need to reproduce a pattern, and the AI is much better at that. So therefore, to make the action and mannerism with a certain human being, you need to have a power to be able to have an empathy. And understanding is the two levels. One is the first level is to make a rule and to make it into the rules and understanding, and that is the rule. And that is that you can have an empathy in a very emotional way. So you have a good chemistry with another person to be able to have such a sense, and that is the understanding. And both sides need to have that. And otherwise, you cannot make the new rules. If without any rule, when you encounter somebody, then you want to be more engaged or you want to speak to this person more. You will not have a trigger like that if you don't have the rule. So in the both sense, so based on the rule, to also based on the emotions, in either way, I think those both are needed for the understanding. So what we need to do for the time being, I think the rule portion has been made and it has progressed. If in the future it will progress more, then it will be much better human existence as a robot than a human being, and also in terms of empathy and has emotions, and to be able to find it. And that is furthermore research is needed. But then how much can you go far? How far can you go just with the rules only is maybe, and if there's something that you may not be able to achieve just by the rule, and there's be some places like that, limitations. In listening to that, you talk about the android for Dr. Ishiguro, that is a model of certain emotions. But in the true sense of the emotions, like human being, have not been placed in those robots yet. But then, if you look at the human being, so in other words, you may have a misunderstanding of another human being in assuming about the emotion about the other, and that may be the key important point. Okay, so let me change some points. What about the aspect of what is in talk about the difference between AI and human being? Should we make it closer to the human being, or in the robotics area, but it becomes much closer to the human being, the appearance when it looks like a human being, rather than the robot arm, the look like a human being robot is much more familiar. But then there's also issue of the droid, and there'll be some uncanny valley issues, and these uncanny valley issues exist as well, because in terms of hospitality, the closeness to the human being, is it good to be closer to the human being in the perspective of the hospitality? in the hospitality rules or robot AI should have? Should it become much closer to the human being, or just like the uncanny valley issues, and just like the appearance issue? Should we? What do you think of this issue? I'd like to ask your opinions. Thank you. For me, in such uncanny valley, there must be uncanny valley issue, but it is the issue of the appearance and how. So there's a static and dynamic aspect, how it moves, and also the static aspects of how its appearance is. So one is to try to make it completely just like a human being, and the static appearance, if it is, then it may exceed the boundary of the uncanny valley. But then, even if you have the exact sense of the appearance of just like exactly like human being, but then the motion and behavior seems somewhat strange. In this physical AI has been made a great evolutions, but basically this is the task on the hand, and can it use it for the communication? This is still have not yet been done. We have to do more fundamental research aspect consideration. It is not the being able to assemble in a real time of the components, because the robot can work with the factory workers together with the human factory workers or not. Is maybe not still questionable.
So uncanny value can be associated to behavior of the difference of Mr. A or B. And next question to Professor Ishiguro. In terms of the gaps that's observed in human and robot, we have super intelligence there in a robot, and a sense of empathy, emotion. Those are the areas yet to develop. And when it comes to the behavior, which is rendered as a robot, then there's a gap between human, and probably that's something that is associated to uncanny valley. And connection with human and robots, what's the impact to the connection with human and robot and the functional balance? When we had a conversation about hospitality, I talked about emotion and empathy and emotion, but creating a robot that's close to human is to make a robot that's very, very close to human. So it's very straightforward. It should be treated like we react with human. But robots with different from people, it takes longer time for us to understand that. And uncanny valley will disappear as you interact with that robot for a longer time, and you will no longer feel that uncanny value. That's the same for zombie or all sorts of uncanny items in the world. By spending times, there will be a common place that you can understand, you can both understand. Together with the rules that we mentioned and a sense of empathy, there may be some sense of uncanny that you may feel with robots that's a bit far from you. But there's lots to learn from things that's different from you. And once after you get accustomed with that differences, you will be able to cater to that differences. So spending enough time is essential to overcome that uncanny value, and you will be able to have wider range of the way you associate with others. Thanks. You'll get accustomed with that uncanny value, that's what you said, and it was interesting. And curiosity was something that I was trying to blend into AI. If there are some outcomes that's different from your expectations, that gap could be reduced by understanding the outputs, and that can connect to what is called emotion. So getting accustomed or getting used to uncanny valley was insightful. And when it comes to that, getting accustomed to uncanniness, let's say if human is interacting with AI and find something that a human cannot understand, the same thing goes the other way around. Robots can also get accustomed with the things that robot cannot understand. And by understanding the way you human react, probably robots will be able to get used to that. And Professor Ms. Ishiguro, you were studying learning models. So what sort of mechanisms would be required to that? To answer your question, it's diverse and depends on the partner you communicate with. And in the conversation we had a short while ago, looking at facial expression or emotion, you may be dragged to that facial expression when a rich facial expression is used by the person you communicate with. That you can learn from that facial expression. But if the person in front of you shows a monotone facial expression, maybe alternative context that could be utilized. So the strategy you adopt to interact with the partner depends on the situation you communicate with. And this is something that is outside of my company business, and it's a research theme done by another researcher. And just because the facial expression, if one person and the other is making the same facial expression, you can touch up your facial expression on Zoom when your face is there in your Zoom teleconference, and you can process your facial expression so that it appears in the same facial expression that a person you are communicating in front of you with. So you can do that verbally or make your way of communication in a similar way that you communicate with, or make body contact. And it depends on the way you communicate with others. That will make the person feel that you are a passionate person. So providing lots and lots of different sort of modality may be required. Thank you. So far, we've been talking about the uncanny value and how can we react with robot AI. And let's say if that becomes available, there next comes a necessity to develop human and robot synergetic society. And when that happens, how far can we ask the robot to take over humans' work? And how further, from where shall human take responsibility from? If we were to live together, we want to find a border. And Professor Ishiguro, you've been studying Android, and you've been studying society where human and robot lives together. And in order for us humans to live with robots with a strong sense of trust, how much can we ask robot AI to take over us? And from where do you think human should take responsibility? To answer your question, we're working for what is called Moonshot Project. And in order to guide morale or ethics, that's what we are trying to create. What I often bring as an example, let's say, suppose a humanoid is sitting next to you on a train and an elderly person comes in that train. That humanoid will immediately stand up and ask the elderly to take a seat and blame the human that's why human is immature. That sort of communication can be done. And in another example, let's say if there's a vending machine returning your small changes, you won't never count that. But when it comes to the storekeeper in the convenience store, that sort of reaction does not, like human will sometimes check the small changes made by human. So sometimes robot is trusted more than human. So that sort of trust blend can be considered to see the borders of the trustability of robots. So far, human was in the center of society. So you were able to identify what's the most crucial part for human, but that was not truly understanding the true potential of robot. And that sort of tests can be done because there will be lots and lots of robots in society. So with doing that sort of thing, I think we'll be able to find the borders. That was very straightforward. Let's say, suppose they're on a trade, robot comes in, and then that robot will immediately stand up when an elderly comes in. Meanwhile, when human cannot stand up, that person might be really tired or feeling tired, especially for young generation, he or she may feel embarrassed to stand up. So can we ask the robot to even pay the burdency to stand up and establish a rule to take the burden? Well, of course, robot is not perfect. Like, if the robot stands up, it may feel a shake of the train, but which one is really honest? Like, suppose a human who is healthy does not stand up, as if he or she is pretending to be sick, and robot not being sick but standing up, which is honest and which is trustable? That sort of comparison should be done. Trust was something mentioned in Mr. Ushiku's research, AI science, and human doing researches together. And based on your experience, roles of humans and roles of robots, and the discussion of robots, what's your insight for that?
Well, thank you. Well, what I have done is the other research. That is the another research I have done, between the human being and AI. And can you think of making the website, the web page, in this box size? What will be the click rate? Can be increased by having. You can do that automatically to increase the click rate in some portion of the website, and that can be done as well. But in between, but in some cases, human and the professional designers do know that, but AI do not really know that, so they tend to continue to search that possibility in the area where it is impossible to increase. So and also by combining the two, for the professional designers agency, in certain sense, between the human and AI can emphasize, both AI and human being can emphasize in design. And that is what I've been thinking. I think the human being is still better in abstract thinking than to bring the ideas from a completely different area. In the research for AI for science, new drug to be designed by AI, even though that is still already done. But then that is just to look for the very similar drug, which we have seen often before. So instead of human being and a DNA utilized vaccination, to think of that completely on a different paradigm, to think of for AI, it is still impossible. And because the impossible ideas to be, is it a feasible innovation? They cannot distinguish between the two by AI. So that is the area where human being is much better in doing that. So with design, and then those scientific ideas can be considered by the human being, and the human being is much better in doing that compared to AI. So AI, because in terms of creativity, the research theme has been there. But in my experience, in the recent experience, when the researchers are studying LLM, and then to one's own idea to be tried, when you think of the idea, is it truly a valuable idea? And then testing and doing the questions to the LLM, and to see whether that is a truly new idea and to be brushed up. And the AI side, when the AI learned that, in doing so, maybe AI can also think of the new way of thinking as well from AI side, I think. But Ushiku-san, but in the AI for science, to develop the AI for doing the science, I think that type of AI can emerge in the future. But if you think of how can we increase the success rate of such an AI is questionable. Because in case of human being, in case of drug discovery, professors in the micro world image is in his or her brain already. If you change the one molecule or one atom, then the total structure will be changed in the desirable characteristics of the substance. For example, protein, it will be easier to bind with protein and so on, and that it will be more electroconductivity can be increased and so on. That can be already in his or her brain already, and that have a higher successful rate. Topic idea, good ideas would be sought after. And in terms of AI, in the language LLM model, the two different ideas which is difficult to be combined, and then in the micro world that could be feasible combination, but how they can discover by the AI is another question. But in the language level, those ideas and it will be still missing. That is the at the real world experience. I think it's a very good example. In looking at the real world example, if it is just not the language, because for example, Dr. Ishiguro's robot research, the physical aspect is important as much as the intelligence. What is the meaning of that physical aspect, and including the senses and motor functions, and to be engaged in the environment, and then by doing so, there's something to be clearly be known, and then the senses, like human being, can be held in this topic. What is the role of the physical aspect of that? Having the body is very complex world, and this is the area that to be able to make a very complex behaviors in the world. In the computer simulation world, that can be achievable, but still, when the human being are making activities in the real world, there are many different senses, and there are many things that are unknown, not understood yet. So therefore, that is extremely complex, and then you need to have such an interface is the human body. So with the senses of the human body, even though that is not something very clearly known, but to be able to move and act in a very complex world, that is a human being. But it is almost like an intuition-like things to be obtained. So very diversified senses and perceptions is the loosely connected, and by experiencing such things through one's own body, and then it is something that cannot be found just by AI only, but rather some type of relationship can be sensed in a diversified way of the physical human being body, and then to have such new ideas can be generated and discovery can be made, and such mechanisms may be produced from the human being. In that way of explanation, maybe someday in the future, robot also may be able to achieve the capability to be able to have some ideas. I think that in doing the research for robot, physical aspect is very important. But in looking at recent large language models, they may be able to do also for the body aspect of the human being. But then, in terms of the sensory organs and motor senses are very important, and also intelligence, it is also very important as well. There are a lot of creativity in there. I'd like to ask a question to Dr. Ushiku. In your research, you mentioned initially about the processing of the image, and then to be able to move and drive the robot, and by having the body, do you think there's a possibility to change the way of thinking of the AI itself? For example, it is not yet available in the physical AI. Let me talk about those function features. In the current physical AI, it is vision, language, and action model, and the qualification and languages and act to be connected to actions. In our case, what is important is the tactile information and contact information is necessary and that is in the vision, language, and action model does not include the tactile function, tactile information. And does it have, if it has a tactile information, does it going to be changed, and it is more be able to do a better movement? And this is very still simple shapes, hand, only with the visual sight, and then with the to be able to be any difference or gaps between the text information, and that is to be able to move some substance and things in the 270,000 hours of learning, then you can make a much quicker assembly. And that those are appealing, that the dexteric strengths to be realized, there are still missing information there. And in real world, and those tactile information to be used in the research of robot is available, it's being done. But if you use that, if it, let's say if it is a fruit or potato chips, and those without destroying the potato chips, the robot may be able to move that, and those functions is available, then what about the large volume of the vision can be connected to the large volume of vision and languages, and those are the next milestone when actions. So the tactile function is what the robot is very important. So that is the topic that is very connected to the next topic for the human. So the human interactions. So to contact the attachment is very important as well. And for the tactile functions and the tactile technology, so that is to start the interaction with tactile information, you may still feel that something is missing, and that is maybe the limitation of the technology of the tactile technology, maybe the limitation in there, and that is the hospitality of the human-to-human interaction. Would that be realized, or is there something that we're still missing? Well, there are always many things that cannot be achieved yet, so this is still unknown and need to be researched more. Because if you say tactile information, there will be a lot of the powers and tactiles, and so that is between the human and tactile sensor issues.
And that's missing dominantly in human, and the strong understanding is missing in that context. But what's missing there? How can we sense those texture? For camera, you can use sensors. That's already there as a de facto standard. But when it comes to tactile sensory, what sort of physical data should be taken in what sort of density? There's a long way to go from here. For example, when it comes to attachment, how can we see where we need to do more? How can we differentiate? Make a differentiation is yet to be studied. The physical capability, significance for robot, that's another interesting point, but unfortunately, we're running short of time. So lastly, I would like to ask the two panelists another question. What is needed to understand human more, and what sort of research would be essential to study hospitality furthermore? Professor Ishiguro, over to you. Coincidentally, textile is something that's always considered by human when we make Android. And the time when I made Android, I studied tactile sense. What's different from image processing? That is, formats already being decided, and we can take lots and lots of formats, but tactile sensory is different, it's diverse. Why is it so diverse? That's because it gets broken so easily. So there's no full tactile suit that anyone can continuously wear without getting broken. So tactile area is yet to develop in AI, and that's the area we have to focus on. And once after that is achieved, true hospitality will be realized, and the tactile forms can be the areas that we can contact with others, and we can see whether it's your body or others' body, and we can feel the connection with others. So that sort of textile is something that we really need to make a true sense of hospitality. Mr. Ushiku, over to you. I know I'm running short of time, so let's make it short. Fusion between human and machine. There in Omron's research center, that's a slogan coined, and I think this is important. That's because, of course, tactile is important, but when many people comes from overseas, there's specific hospitality in Japan, and some get amazed with Japan-specific hospitality, but asked if that is welcomed by others. That's another discussion. But for robot and AI or robot and human, AI and human, and that sort of discussion, AI robot can also teach human about hospitality to human. When you go to different culture area, you will be able to understand from the country you do not live. So you can also mutually communicate with robots and get insights from robots. Thank you. Unfortunately, our time is up. So let us give a good big applause to the panel discussion guest.
Please. それでは皆様コネクティブスペースの方へお進みいただきネットワーキング